Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome to the KSB TV stream. We have our special guest Gary here and HEX Lion, of course. Hi, how's it going, guys?
I'm excited to be here. It's seeing each other face to face again. Maybe Miami might have been the last time. It's always great to catch up with people that have perspective from all around the world. And I think you guys are international travelers like me, so I love it every time we get together.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's awesome to be here. Hello to everybody out there as well. Thanks to you, Gary, for inviting us to your place today. And let's have an awesome stream.
Yeah, it's beautiful here. We have an awesome view. Actually, we do not show it to you guys because just the backlighting would be too bad. Anyways, we have a lot of nice topics for you. For example, is the bottom in, guys? What do you think? This is something that we will discuss. Also, there's right now low liquidity. Where is the liquidity going to? We do not know, but we will discuss it. And then, of course, we have Rackham situation, right? A lot of FUD and Hexicans fighting against each other. It's crazy. And then, of course, the low prices, guys. And I would especially like to concentrate today, how does those low prices affect Pulse and Pulse X in the future? I think HEX Lion does know exactly what I want to talk about here. But first of all, I think we should start with the elephant in the room. Prices are going down. And just recently, we had a little recovery again, right?
Yeah, Gary, I don't know if you're the right guy because we know that you're like a long-term staker, that you barely look at the price. But did you notice it at least?
I woke up this morning and I saw some comments on Twitter. People were starting to say, hey, it's up to 7 cents or whatever it had been. I know that it had spiked down when some liquidity got pulled and then sold at market. I don't know why someone does that and went with such an obvious loss as far as the financial reward that they could have had.
With the slippage, yeah.
Yeah, so much slippage. So we can talk about that later. But yeah, I've paid attention maybe more so in the past few days, but I'm really a long-term investor. If I do it with real estate, I don't think about turnaround for 5 years. If I do it with some kind of with some kind of startup, I usually don't think that they're going to be in profit for 3 to 5 years. So my mentality, similar to others in the investing space, is usually longer term. That's why I was so attracted to HEX to begin with.
And then especially you're talking about staking so often because it's just like real estate where you get more and more interest over the years, right? But HEX Lion, so like just lead us through what happened a couple of days ago. Somebody sold some HEX, the price were going down, and today the situation looks a little bit different already.
Yeah, I mean, at first we saw like the fight about the 10-cent mark where we got this one guy selling like 87 million HEX worth in 3 transactions. And then a few days later, we first saw like another big guy selling 22 million market. And then the liquidity provider pulling his liquidity and selling 140 million at the market and putting the price down to a new all-time low of little under 4 cents. And yeah, looks like Hexicans like this price level right now. They were just waiting for the HEX price to drop sub 10 cents. And if you look at the price performance today, it's like up over 20%. So yeah, looks pretty cool.
So now there is this inevitable question: is the bottom in, guys? What do you think? Can we even drop lower than that?
It's cryptocurrency, so it's always possible that you can drop lower than that. And I mean, I would say it's definitely a nice buying zone between now and the low we produced in last.
But I've heard a lot of YouTubers already saying this might be the bottom. Look, we already going up again with the price. But I guess for you, Gary, this doesn't matter at all because you're a long-term staker. And this is also something we want to talk about later.
But Gary, what do you think, like based on the world economic situation, like will that continue to be bad? Is there already a turnaround, or?
Well, you hear about the Fed again. I don't stay super tied into what the Fed action is. I just don't know that their habit has been to print into wealth, to print more money, to have this idea that's counterintuitive, and that the fear narrative gets views. The commentary that doom and gloom is right around the corner gets views. I see a lot of people on Twitter, and especially if they're commenting even about real estate, they talk about the big collapse that's coming, right? And that does get attention, and
but some of them are talking about the big collapse since 2009 or something like that.
Yeah. So when you look at where else does the economic energy transfer to? Because I don't think that there's such a thing as wealth destruction. I think it simply transfers to a different asset class. So if a government says, hey, the thing that we want most economic energy sunk into is real estate, because you can't put it in a backpack, you can't take it across border. It has different value in different geographical areas and different communities, right? So it's really kind of like a non-fungible thing, even though it's real estate, right? It's the asset class of real estate, but residence in Ohio is different than residence in Miami, right? So these elements have different attractors to them, and governments want an economic base that they can harvest from. They want the sheep to stay in a place where they can shear them, right? And so the things that they enable the best, that is against the hyperinflation, superinflation kind of narrative, is low interest rate on 30-year fixed mortgages. That's a big selling point. And it does a couple of things, is because now the person that has a mortgage effectively at 3 or 4% APR interest rate, they are shorting the dollar. If the dollar is superinflating or hyperinflating over time, if you say that there's an inflation of 8.5% to 15%, depending on your metrics, whatever it might be in the States, you are effectively shorting that by having a loan, basically an intangible contract obligation, because you're taking a loan. It's a new contract, and that loan is buying the property. And if you're doing it in a business sense, you're trying to have tenants that basically are paying for your property. So if that anchors economic energy, if that sequesters
I'm not sure if that's really such a positive play, because it results in the monetary policy we are in, and it also results that a lot of people who have projects who would not be profitable in normal market environments, like with normal interest rates and so on, they still get their loan, and therefore you can also argue that a lot of capital is miscalculated in the world.
Well, and again, George Gammon talks a lot about this, about misappropriation of funds or malinvestment. When you have such a liberal access to credit, you have such availability. Like in 2008 and 9, they were called ninja loans. No income, no job, right? So if you had a ninja loan, you could get a loan for a house, even though you had no source of income to prove that you could pay for it, right? That was a real thing. You could have 2 or 3 houses, actually.
And then they wondered why the market crashed.
Because so that asset class crashed because of that very liberal credit system.
And also like because of the leveraging of those credits, like bundling them and then like put it on the next market and so on.
So you have an example of the movie The Big Short, which is the story played out, right? And so you need bear markets. I think that you need bear markets.
Yeah, I also think that you need
every idea
cycles,
isn't a good idea.
Yes,
you need some kind of way to to basically, just like you have a forest. Sometimes you need a fire, and the fire sometimes gets rid of a lot of the underscrub that isn't serving the better ecology.
I disagree on the fire, but I say, okay, you need somebody like to maintain the forest and puts out like the little wood in after the winter, for example, in Austria, and all that stuff.
Let's bring that back to HEX though. And what does this bear market do to HEX especially?
It brings the price down.
Well, the narrative that I buy into and that I market about HEX is as similar to ones that you market, as T-shares and reward over time and yield. That's the narrative. The narrative that when Richard was inventing this particular product, from contributions from commentary of all of us, right? We all were in the Telegram rooms when it first started, before it was actual product finished, is that it wasn't a denial that bear markets would hit HEX. It was never something that says HEX is immune to bear market in cryptocurrency.
No, and you see that on hex.com, like only hex.com writes about dips are in the game.
They're in the game. They're absolutely in the game. And part of that narrative is that the ones that get the most reward out of the phenomenal climb in Bitcoin are the people that held Bitcoin, right? They held it through major dips, 80%, 90%. I mean, there's a website, I think, that shows all the major dips inside of Bitcoin. I'm sure that there's one that shows it in Ethereum as well. But these are emotional reactions that end up having these waterfall effects where people sell it because it's reflexive until there's exhausted. There's no more sellers. And then once that's exhausted, then you can, okay, fine, now I can 100x from here, that kind of number. And sitting through those things is a great emotional toil. Challenge. It's an emotional challenge. There's a lot of sulking and depression and misfortune that happens with people's psychology. And then you have, the overwhelming euphoria that, oh, wow, now we're going up, but I sold. What have I got to do now? I've got a FOMO because now it's going up, right? So this chopping you up kind of process. People end up, what I don't like is people end up reaching out to some person or entity or group that claims to be an authority and says, if only you had listened to me, then you would have traded at this point in, and you would have traded at this point out, and you'd been all saved. Like I would have been your savior if you'd only had, listened to what I have to say. What I like is I don't have to listen to a person. Richard Hart makes all kinds of commentary. It's helpful, it's informative, but I don't have to listen to everything he says, and I don't have to believe in every concept he puts out there. What I can believe in is the code. I can believe in the code of HEX. The code of HEX gives yield of HEX. Staking HEX gives you reward of HEX. And whether it's on one chain
and
or
you
another,
can rely on that. So you know that
immutability.
nobody can ever change that, and that the
Right.
mathematics will not change.
Or just print more HEX somehow, so there's nothing like this going on.
Yeah, and another thing, it's similar. You have narratives that say, like I said, I have an inside scoop. I've got information before you do about something that's going to happen. You should pay me for that kind of access, and I'm going to sell it to you plus 100 other people.
So we should all.
So I'm going to profit from the fact that you don't have the immediate access to information that I do. Right. What I love about HEX is the code is transparent. I love about HEX is the community is transparent. The ones that, like you, vocalize and say, here's how it works, here's what's going on, this is the effort we're putting into the community, this is the economic storage of information that we want to throw out there, right? You put out green information. So I love the HEX community, but I love the HEX product most because I don't have to hope that I'm the first one to get the information. I can act on information whenever I get it, whether it's from a guru, whether it's from the Fed saying, hey, this is what we announced today, and here's what the FOMC is going to do with interest rates, and here's the reaction the stock market's going to happen.
And you still need to believe so much because they still don't give you the right statistics or for something like that. For example, we know exactly how much units the whole HEX market has. Do you know how much units the US dollar has in total? Like the M3 money supply?
No.
Nobody knows nearly.
What might be put out there as information is still blurry. Even the government that prints our dollar doesn't know how much we actually have out in the world. That's why every so often we reprint our $100 bill. We make a new $100 bill in a different shape and form and different color and things like that. So we don't really know how much is out there still sequestered in bundles under someone's bed. We don't know the actual supply.
Yeah, the actual cash supply.
But we have laws implemented where big investors have to show every year or so how much they invested, how much they sold, right? I guess this is the reason why we know how much Elon Musk bought and sold. And in HEX, you know everything in the minute it happens because everything is on a blockchain. And then we all have the statistic hexvision.com. But
that's why you also know because the 87 million seller, for example, moved his HEX to different addresses and then sold. But of course, on the blockchain, everything is transparent. So you just look into history of the whole wallet, and then you know, it came from that. It came from that. This is related to that. This is like a wallet from the December 2019. And so
the biggest thing that affects the markets of all types, real estate, stock, bond, crypto, is uncertainty. Uncertainty. And right now, the biggest, loudest voice in the room is what the Fed is going to do as far as the United States and what other central banks will
but
do.
If you put it to the HEX market, isn't it the biggest uncertainty pulse chain right now?
Well, maybe the timing of the release or something along those lines. And of course, again, I've said this last night on our stream too, is I am very much love HEX because of its immutable and its code. And even though it's an ERC 20 or something like that, it's a smart contract. I would watch out for this B. he loves the perfume in the room or something.
So I have a comment here from Kazawov. He is saying bear market washed out the weak hands. So Patrick, the prices are going down. The people that are selling right now, they get washed out just by itself, right? Every bear market does that.
Imagine you sold yesterday, for example. You woke up like at 5 cents or sub 6 cents or something like that. Oh, panic, and then you sold. Yeah, then you were like 1 hour or something like that. You thought like, I made a great job because you saw 4 cents, but you did not rebuy. And then today you woke up at over 7 cents, for example.
And if I already left my position yesterday completely, I cannot dump more, right? And then what I always like to mention in HEX is that we have this beautiful mechanism, emergency and stakes. And as the prices are going lower, as there's panic in the HEX market, do you guys think we will see more and more emergency and stakes, maybe even longer stakes that are now panicking and are emergency and staking? So what happens if those people emergency and stake?
I don't think so, actually.
They
I know
have
you
to
think
pay
so, but I don't think so.
Let me finish up this point though. Those people that emergency and stake, they will have to pay a fee, and now they have less financial energy to dump it on the market, right? So it actually protects the whole price that we have in HEX. Now the question is though, would you guys ever emergency and stake? Do you think other people are doing it? Because we see it on the blockchain that people are actually doing it. They're emergency and stake.
No, I
not more than
I thought
normally?
like a lot of times before I staked my HEX, like how I will stake it, always with the background in my mind, like how should I make my staking ladder that I never need to emergency and stake. But actually, you know, I did emergency and staking before the big payday in order to move some short stakes to longer stakes, but that's not a useful play right now anymore. And where I see more emergency and stakes, and I would like to have your take on that as well, is when we have the next bull market. Because people are just like blown away with the money they have in this specific stake, and then they will press the emergency and stake button. Not right now, where they still have like this straw. Okay, each and every day I still get the interest, which is true, and you will be out of the bear market with more HEX if you just do nothing than stake right now.
Yeah, I mean, if someone tries to be savvy about it and they look at maybe at the reference, if they trust the reference of the rainbow chart of Bitcoin, right? And they say, okay, here's where the halvening is, and here's what happened, you know, in Bitcoin as a reference point for the rest of the crypto market. You know, a lot of traders like to say that there's an alt season, here's the Bitcoin season, here's where this happens, this is why this correlation, that kind of stuff, right? And a lot of us inside of HEX end up saying the same sorts of things, that there will be bulls, there will be bears. Maybe it coincides with the rainbow chart. Maybe this is the low, which a lot of people seem to think that the bear market is across all of crypto, and it has been going on for a year since it's $60-something thousand top and where it's at now, right? And there's fear narratives about, you know, whether it's Sailor or whomever it might be, that, you know, now they've got to liquidate or something, right? So there's going to be price change, and if someone's going to set a stake, what I could see possibly happening is someone says, in case it's a longer cycle than I thought it was, I'd put it at 5 years. So that 2.5 years from now, at least I can pull my principal from early in staking, and I lose my interest because I'm at the top and I feel it's the top. Someone said it's the top. Someone that's been accurate in the past says, here's the top. Here comes the top. I made the top. I called the top, right? If that kind of, you know, person says something like that, they might say, okay, this might be a good opportunity for me to early in stake in my HEX and give up the interest that I've earned over the past 3 years or something like that, right? So I can see that narrative playing out inside of the community, inside of the broader audience that someone like Richard Hart has now. When you looked at HEX launching in 2019, how many Twitter followers did he have? How many YouTube followers did he have?
Less than 50,000.
How much vocalization was about him, right? Whether it was you know, what I called earlier today, shock jockery, you know, kind of getting, you know, punching through the noise of everything that gets people's attention. So where will it be in a year, 2 years, 3 years during that bull? Where will that particular voice, where will your voice be in 2 years or 3 years from now, right? So it's the same sort of thing. So I can see the early in staking narrative, but I only see it, people that sit through this one and they're still staked, right? They sit through this bull, this bear that becomes a bull. We've talked before about the launch of 2019. A lot of people 5, 5, 5, 5. So a lot of people 10-year staked. A lot of people 5-year staked. and you know that the code tells you that you will give up your interest if you serve half. So I would look at those kinds of markers, like you said, hex.vision, other things about your planning. If you are new in HEX.
It comes even harder for people who stake before the big payday, because the emergency end stake mechanism, how it works, it flags certain days of your serve time, and so if the big payday gets flagged, you lose the entire big payday interest. And the big payday interest for someone who staked before the big payday is still the majority of the accrued interest.
Yeah.
So I have Graphene here. He's saying at line exactly during the price, the rips, we will see emergency end stake people FOMO out and some very big payouts to stakes. So as
tops, I guess, during the tops.
During the tops, exactly. Yeah. So as the price is rising, as we encounter the $7 hex, people will think, oh man, this stake is now so much. Even if I lose the interest, it's still millions of dollars.
Yeah, they will front run you. At 650, they will emergency end stake to front run.
That's been our idea, right? This could happen. I was just curious to see if this might even happen in the bear market, where people now totally freak out and just even panic sell emergency end stake. I mean, I have seen emergency end stakes in the past.
Yeah, but still, we all saw that, yeah. And if you now look like at the panic mode of the last 2 weeks nearly, and look at the emergency end stakes, then there are like a couple of million hex each and every day, which means it's more like from. It's a minor thing, honestly. So you don't see any big wallet emergency end staking. And the last time we saw that was also due to a hack and not to a uneducated decision or something like that.
But we can go to the next topic here. I have prepared a screen share, and what you guys see here is the liquidity that is on a look into HEX. Of HEX, of course.
Yeah, just one last thing, what I wanted to take on this bull and bear market. Do you think that, so did we already talk, like, do you think the bottom is in?
I feel like it. I mean, again, I don't know that I'm best connected to the rest of the HEX community. How many are we now? 300,000, 400,000? How many people do you think represent HEX? Hold HEX,
hold
liquid
HEX,
or illiquid.
Liquid or illiquid, yeah. Then we are like at, I say 135,000 because the number is 300 something thousand, but there was this CK Sync airdrop to 170,000 people in 2020.
Right.
So I don't calculate that.
So same sort of thing. It's still blurry about how many are actually participants, and then I subset that also between people that are staking versus not staking, and people that are beyond the staking that are vocal or public in some form. So it's a small population in general. And like I think that many have been tempered, at least the public ones that I associate with. But I don't know if I can speak to the people that follow, multiple coins, and this is the one that performs in their portfolio versus others. I don't know, like they have 20 other things, and HEX just is a portion of it.
I mean, I watched different coins, and a lot of coins did like 90% minus. The only reason why I could, so I also think the bottom is in, but why it couldn't be in is because of general market and Bitcoin and Ethereum. General markets in a bear market usually move the S&P 500 a third, like 30% or a little more. It only went 20%. Bitcoin and Ethereum usually do 80 to 85%, only did a little less than 70, so 66 or something like that.
Right.
So, and if they do like their 80, 85, if the general market does their 32 instead of the 20, that's a huge difference, like 20 to 32%, or like 66 to 85 is also a huge difference. So that would be the point where I say, okay, even HEX cannot hold against it.
But I mean, the challenge is that you don't know. Tim Draper has 100,000. Chimoth has 100,000. You don't know people that have whale scale Bitcoin, how they've used it as collateral, such as Michael Saylor using something, or Terra Luna using Bitcoin as the collateral to take other leverage in other products, stock or real estate or whatever it might be, right? And a lot of these other asset classes have calls. So we just to look at the whole marketplace and do drill down on each option of what might happen catastrophic in the whole crypto space is different than what has been built on in HEX so far, right? There's not a lot of leverage positions, even though we do know that there are some VC that played around inside of HEX and hold HEX. We don't know, that they're leveraged. We don't know where they're leveraged at. We don't know where they say. Same thing in any recession, depression, whatever you want to call it, on a macroeconomic scale. People don't sell what they want to sell. They sell what they have to sell because that's what's liquid and that's what can provide, right? So
what worries me is that that in a bear market, HEX cannot be so anti-correlated than in a bull market. And we saw that like last year at first, main crypto already had this first fall. HEX still kept on going, made the all-time high in September.
Yeah.
But now with the bear market, we see more correlation.
Well, we see different ways of distributing things of value. Originally, when HEX launched in 2019, it had zero value because there was no place to trade it. You could buy it effectively by putting something into the AA, and a pot comes out.
Not true. There was BuyDesk.
BuyDesk didn't exist in the first day of the very first day.
BuyDesk
On the very first day of
the
AA?
very first day on
I
the
remember
AA.
that. I remember it being a week
It
or
was
so after.
BuyDesk V1, and then like 3 weeks later they got to BuyDesk V2. I never traded on there, but I
think
I
when
charted.
you look at the potential
charted
ARB or
chart,
the potential in or out, I think that you never would have made any kind of.
I mean, it was just
profitability.
the
You could
central,
only get
this
HEX from
one
the AA.
centralized option. So there was an option, but it was only this one centralized shady option.
Yeah.
And in the third week, the Uniswap came into play. Uniswap
Okay.
V1.
Well, and then we saw the ARB play out. But what I was trying to get at is the supply. Like where is the supply? Right now, we know that there's been many mechanisms since 2019 that take supply out of quote unquote weak hands into stronger hands.
All those fluctuations. Yes.
Right. So Crypto Coffee, his content is pretty much HEX. Dog pretty much HEX. You guys pretty much HEX with the ecosystem, right? Pretty much, right? Yeah. So now you have brand and your reputation, and not just your stakes of what you might have personally, but you have staked your reputation in a lot of ways. We didn't have that in 2019. We didn't,
true, yeah.
right? So I think
only Hexo.
Hexo was kind of a leader in that field.
That's true,
right?
Yeah. Hexo inspired us as well.
Yeah, and the same thing with RG3 or others, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we're in a better position than we were in 19 if the bear had happened. I don't know where we were as a whole market in 2019. I know that I was still PTSD from 2017 and 18. I was still, fearful of the crypto products and projects in 2019. And so participating in Telegram helped me a little bit. Richard helped me a little bit. People like yourself and other people making commentary that I respected helped me a little bit. But now we've had a couple of years of that kind of voice, and it's helpful. I mean, it's helpful in the resolve. That's kind of my point.
So before we jump into the next topic, Gary, you showed us something on Etherscan that was really interesting, I thought. What we see here is top tokens by unique senders. And HEX was just yesterday on top 6, right? Now it's 8th place. And what does it tell us? That we have so many unique senders right now.
So it's 3 columns, and it's 3 different options as far as the timelines: 24 hours, 3 days, and 7 days.
Yeah, let's
and
go
I think
to the
at
3
the
days.
3-day phase, it's a sixth position. If you look at the lead, of course, I think a lot of things are consolidating on the ERC20s of Tether and USDC. Those were like the top tiers, and DAI, all stable coins. To me, whenever I look at the list, go a little bit higher up the list. So what do I see? I see stablecoin is number 1, stablecoin is number 2. Wrapped Ether, which is basically transaction. I don't know about the wrapped Luna token, what's all going with that, because I haven't really paid attention to their launch of their 2.0 to try and save their 1.
I mean, isn't that a little weird? I have a project. I told everybody that I'm the best, and we will have so much fun to watch everybody else fail. Then this project fails, and not even a month later, they are like, now we do the same thing all over again with Luna V version 2, and everybody is like, yay!
Well, so what people did buy Bitcoin 2.0. Do you know that Bitcoin 2.0 tried to launch right after its collapse?
Really?
Yeah, they said we're going to reorganize. We're going to turn on the bot again.
Okay.
Here's the address. So I mean, to me, the stable coin is what they're making the joke about. Stable coin. I thought that was interesting. But as far as these seems like again, out of all the things that transact, these are ones that have the most stalwart communities, or they're a safety play going into a stable coin. So all of these transactions, and out of it, Shiba has obviously a big group. Matic, I think that has to do with Polygon, right? That's
Yeah. That's
Chainlink has been celebrity for a long time as far as the crypto space, but I really like our positioning in the uniques.
And Patrick, what we see here is top tokens by till uniques, which means unique addresses, right? So I guess this would be hard to manipulate, right?
It's not manipulatable because it's blockchain. I mean, of course, it's like a new player could theoretically, let's say he want to
open up addresses and just buy, make transaction, but nobody would do that right now. That's what I'm saying. It's hard to manipulate. That's why I like to see HEX up there in number 6 place.
I mean, it's usual that a person has more than one address, but it's unusual that a person has like more than 20 addresses or something like that.
And again, to speak to your advocacy over the past year or so, all the stuff that you did as far as your education seminar sessions, multi-city thing, or whatever. There's a lot of people that have to ruminate over something. They have to consider, digest, come to a conclusion, go through a process, right? Before they say, okay, seems like I'm going to get into the real estate game. I'm going to get into the stock market game. I feel like I've got people that are trustworthy and they've invested into me to understand their product or their concepts, right? So there's a lot of that that's been going on when the price was 50 cents, 40 cents, 30 cents, 12 cents, as it's gone down, just as it's gone up, right? So some of that, it does take a bit of time. And when people look to say, hey, inflation is on the horizon or it's here, other things seem like they're making me nervous about like my employability or my skill set in the marketplace. What's that worth? Am I going to be able to keep up with the Joneses, or whatever it is, narratives? So I personally like that HEX is represented in that roster on Ethereum's Etherscan. That's really useful to me.
And it also shows just how good it is going, right?
And it shows that HEX is not dead, that it's pretty viral and used by thousands of people on a daily basis.
Yeah, when I looked at the numbers the other day, it was something about the adoption as far as number of brand new addresses. That's what I was saying also. If people are buying, if they're selling at a high and then they're buying it back, or they're buying something that they hold for a long period of time, they usually use the same address. Like we might have in your MetaMask several different addresses with different reasons why you have different staking ladders or whatever it might be. So that may be the addresses you control and you use. But to generate a brand new address to send or receive HEX, a brand new address, that's interesting because that seems to be, to me, more of the adoption narrative.
Yeah, but still, maybe the seller sold all units, then he's out of the statistics, and then when he rebuys, he gets into the statistics.
So does it get called a unique again, though? I thought it was unique because I saw the numbers go to 302,000 versus 298,000. May 12th, 15 days ago, or 13, whatever the number is, May 14th maybe, on Etherscan, whenever you look up the HEX contract, it shows a ramp about how many have adopted over the past, new addresses have adopted HEX.
Yeah, but if he really has no stake and sells all the liquid HEX, I guess he's out of this calculation, then gets back in.
But what I'm saying because is on net, the number is going up.
But still, it's a unique address who holds now HEX.
But that's what I'm saying is if you sell, you're probably going to use the same address to buy. You sold with.
But then you have a -1 and a +1.
And it depends on the time frame, I guess, how long this guy is in and out, maybe. And then it's
or if you go to etherscan.io/the contract for a HEX.
Yeah, and if you then
just go to the search engine and put HEX in. There you go. So if you go here, you can see where's the ramp.
That too.
Yeah.
All right.
Where's the ramp thing? About the address. Click on for the contract. Is this for the contract? Is this for
the token contract?
Yeah, the token contract. That's probably it. No. Where is it at? It's the one that has the ramp on the top page for the.
What kind of ramp?
Go back.
I don't know what you mean with ramp.
That's the address.
Yeah.
This is up here. Was maybe. I can't remember where it's at. Is it analytics?
Contracts maybe. It's over
This is
here.
just
It's
source
actual
contract.
contract for HEX.
Okay.
I can't remember where it's at, but it's usually like up in this space up here where the balances are and such. And it says how many people are using HEX today, like the 27th. How many Ethereum addresses have HEX inside them? And it's like 302,500, something like that.
Yeah,
there
there
it
it
is.
is.
302,799. So if you slide over it, if that's presenting, if you slide over it, it goes by day tick.
Yeah.
So I remember yesterday it was like 2520 when we were talking on the last stream.
Yeah.
And so far in May 28th, it's at this new number that you see is highlighted. But if you ramp back and you go all the way to the beginning of this particular ramp, it goes back until May 14th.
Yeah.
So that's 13 days. It's like a 2-week window.
Yes.
And what I see is less than 300,000 and at
now
current
you see like
302.
Yeah.
So that's like 1%. That's 1% of all new growth, 1% growth in 12, 14 days. That's pretty impressive to me.
Yeah. And I would say like at least even more than 80% of this percent is really new buyers who are really coming in.
Isn't it really interesting that we have those many unique addresses right now where the prices are going down, a lot of people are going in and out, right? So this maybe means that we have
what is
coins
the
going to
community
other people.
teaching? The community is not teaching trading, the community is not teaching FOMOing, the community is always teaching like go in steps, prices are volatile, look that if you're in your buying zone still, you know, that you average down your average, that you get like a better deal, you know, more HEX is always better as well. And this is like the consensus, how the community teaches everybody else, which is the right thing to do. And that's why the HEX market looks like there are still people who still have money because they did not FOMO all in at the tops, you know.
Well, there's also the narrative that we put out there of dollar cost average in. That's something that gets told even by trading people that teach trading is dollar cost average in and dollar cost average out.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is the narrative that we put out as Hexicans is, you know, stake your principal, put a ladder, and when your ladder matures, when that rung of your ladder matures, you can make the decision: are you going to sell your principal plus yield, or are you going to just sell your yield and restake your principal? So again, when you see the accumulation of the number of holders, it is because I think a lot of people that are in the staking mentality, staking class, they do just restake. They don't restake maybe all of it. They do take out some sense of profit. And that if they do take out profit, it is very similar to DCAing out.
Yes.
They are dollar cost averaging out. Whatever the price point may be, they may decide I'm going to restake the whole thing, price is too low, or I'm going to stake just the principal again because the price is high enough that my yield matters and I'm going to sell my yield. So we have a better narrative as a community.
So we can go jump into the next topic here. I will just screen share again. Patrick, this is look into HEX. We see the different pools here of liquidity.
Yeah, that's so it's a site from Gerardo. Originally, it had some help from Wave 3 TV as well, Patrick. And what you see here is all the liquidity pools, the decentralized liquidity pools together. So you see like the HEX USDC pair and its total liquidity. So if you mark the HEX USDC again, just to tell the audience like what are those 16 something million, this number, this is the total value. So all the HEX which are in the HEX USDC pool with the current HEX price and all the USDC with the current $1 price together. And if you go down a little more, then here you see Uniswap V2 and Uniswap V3. And here you can also see like the US dollar values of the individual pools. So in the HEX USDC pool on V3, only on the USDC side, you see, for example, 11.3 million USDC. And everything together, I don't know, Gary, would you like to explain bid and ask?
Not really. I don't know. This is when people look at the liquidity in the pool and they're trying to make investment decisions about when and timing. I really don't try to time the market myself, me personally. So I'm not really that great of a commentator about it. When I make a presentation, if I talk to someone that's a new person, they don't know anything about HEX, I'll talk about the concept, I'll talk about the mechanism, I'll talk about the contract, talk about the community, and I talk about the opportunity. The opportunity, they can weigh their timing. If they really want to get into it and they're very machine-like or analytical and they want to know, like to try to time an entrance, then I may refer them to someone that knows more, like you guys. Or others like Gerardo or whatever. This is really going to give a TA kind of review about price point and where we are in a step or whatever it might be. But it just really isn't my field. I really haven't.
But like just generally speaking, it's a good thing to see like a higher bids than ask, right?
Yeah,
because at least people want to have more HEX. We don't know, like with this number, if it's like at current prices or if this goes like a pyramid, like way down in price, that most of it lays maybe at 1 cent. You can look further into it to find out over uniswap.info, for example. But in general, it tells us that there are more people wanting to have HEX than who are willing to sell HEX, right?
Yeah, you can get into the granular detail of it, because I think Richard makes the same kind of comments about, when you see a buy or a sell wall in a CLOB, in a centralized ledger, like a centralized exchange, right? So you can see, okay, they placed an order. It might be, on either side of the price point. And you can build your investment thesis around, hey, these people are just waiting for the drop, and then they're going to support the price. So they're waiting for a drop because it's an opportunity to buy a dip or whatever it might be. I think it is assuring. Yes, I do want more bid than ask, and I like those kind of volumes. But really, when I think about the ROI of the product, I think of yield on yield as far as HEX staking yielding more HEX. But then there's also a price narrative, that appreciation that will happen, I think, in just about anything in this kind of macroeconomic event situation. People are looking for stores of value. They're saying, I can't trust my politician because they said something last year that's different than today. I can't trust my job because my employer thinks of this is where we need to pivot as a business, and maybe I'm not going to be in the department that stays on, right? So there's all kinds of fear out there in the general economic scene. When people look for store of value narratives, the ones that I used to associate with were gold and silver bugs, and people that said, hey, we're going to go to a zombie apocalypse, and the only thing that's ever going to be economically worthwhile is this piece of metal, right? Well, that is proven as untrue during 2008 and recent COVID and all these other kinds of things. You can look at actual price performance. It doesn't keep up with inflation. So people, I think, when they are presented with the opportunity where math is something to see as sound, worthwhile, to say 2 + 2 = 4, and people have that in their mind, their investment thesis will change to something like HEX.
So the reason why I brought up the liquidity is because of the next page that I want to show here. We see, what do we see here, Patrick? If we go down a little bit.
So here we have like HEX daily stats.
But I want to go actually to the right. No, sorry, we change a little bit. So here we see the liquidity from day 898, for example, being 211 million, and now a lot of liquidity has been pulled already. So what does that to the price, right? And also what happens now? What can happen in the future?
In general, lower liquidity means higher volatility. So that's like a general thing. So that means that if big whales still want to cash out, they will eat way more slippage than before, for example. And that also means that if more people want to buy the HEX price now, way less total liquidity is required to push the price up.
So even a smaller amount, like say $1 million, $2 million, can already push the price way more than it was 2 weeks ago, for example, because we have a higher liquidity, right?
That's true, yeah.
So, and then we can go here to Twitter, and we see Hextronaut here, for example. He's saying, okay, Hexicans, let's work on that together. LP just pulled 140 million HEX liquidity and dumped it, from what I understand. What do you guys think about that? Is that the right move to play, or wouldn't you do it the other way around, where you just leave the liquidity and then do all your sales and then maybe pull liquidity?
Yeah, very obviously, this was not a very smart play if someone was trying to actually capture dollars or capture Ethereum or capture whatever it is in ratio trade. Like you just said, if they had said, I simply want to exit the market, I don't want to be involved, whatever it is. And they're going to divest themselves completely. A smarter path would have been to say maybe 40 million and leave 100 million as liquidity, and then basically sell their position over either hours, days, or whatever it might have been, and then pull another chunk of liquidity and pull another until they're completely out of the liquidity pool. But yeah, it wasn't a very intelligent move. I think that on net, when I looked before, I don't know the exact numbers. I just did like a general 20-second look at the address, and I think that they netted somewhere around $4 million over the course of 30 days of sells. And that was the address that did also pull 140 million and sell 27 million in one swipe, 27 million in another swipe, and was exiting out of position. But in net, if they had been smarter, or they didn't specifically have the intention of spooking the market, so they might have had position, whether it's emotional position, or whatever, as a decision making, more so than just dollar yield. If they wanted to make money, they didn't do it very well. If they wanted to spook the market, maybe that's a trigger, and that was the action that they actually wanted to cause. If they wanted to just, I don't like this game, I'm going to take my ball and you can't play with it anymore, then they might have done this other thing. So you can infer all kinds of things about why people did stuff, but on net, to me, I would rather people exit the market of HEX at a low price than I would at a high price.
Of course, yeah.
And I just saw that the price of HEX is going up again. I just see 8 cents here at Etherscan.
I'm so glad I bought.
So we will definitely screen share that here. We are on Dex.Screener.
Like 5.5 cents not long ago. Thank you, man.
A little bigger here. And you know what? This looks ridiculous to me, because what we see here is a big sell. We just discussed that, and now people are buying up, and we just see this wonderful green candle evolving 8 cents again.
Yeah, I mean, from the lowest point to up here, it already doubled.
Yeah, no problem, no problem at all.
So that's why it would fit like as a low point where Richard can put up again, like the last time after big payday.
Yeah,
up to the height at 28,000% nearly to 200.
Yeah, I would love to see someone do an analysis breakdown. You guys or Silver the Underdog or anybody that kind of loves going through this kind of content to see what happened, because it's theoretical about if we have this forking event and we have liquidity that's pulled from contract, do they get copied without getting the AMM bot taking their value effectively? So is it that people are going to pull liquidity from the pools before
I would suggest
so that the AMM doesn't
doesn't dilute you.
Yeah, it doesn't dilute them, right? So it's kind of this. It's a different mechanism, but it's a similar action, I think, about the big payday when people said, hey, I'm going to make 3 times my stack because I'm going to be the only one that knows this knowledge that Richard's been telling everybody, that if you stake on this one day, then you can get a massive input, right? But he's going to tell, I'm the only one listening and no one else is going to listen. That narrative played out.
Yeah, it's like a week before the big payday, it was still like a 4 or 5x.
Yeah, people were like, yes, I'm going to make so much because I'm the only one listening.
Yeah.
But then, of course, everybody's listening. And then 100% gets staked or 90-something.
Yeah, 90-something, 99 something.
It's a ridiculous amount and has this big input. And so, it's interesting now we have almost another, in my opinion, another opportunity, but whether it plays out similar economically as big payday did, which, effectively, I'll say the only time I've early in stake has been to readjust my thesis at big payday or before big payday. That's the only time I've ever in-staked. I've never in-staked otherwise. And kudos to people that I don't see as often, but he does make a lot of HEX content. But he sat down after one of our particular streams, and it was Dollar Cost Crypto at the time, Litecoin, that said, hey, this is what you should do about your big payday mechanism. And I said, okay, this hurts me to think about early in staking, but it was the smartest thing I could do at the time. And I think people need to have that in their mind about this forking event that's going to come up.
So I want to talk about price a little bit more. Look, Patrick, we are 17% up today in the last 24 hours, and you just said from probably more. I'm just looking here at Dex Screener, and you said from the lowest low, a couple of just yesterday or 2 days ago until today, we are already up 200%. But you have all the numbers. 100%. You have all the numbers in the head when it comes to what was the HEX price when we sacrificed for Pulse or for Pulse X, and now with the price of HEX being so much lower, what do you predict, and what could the outcome be of that when Pulse Chain then actually launches?
I don't predict anything here, because when it comes to the fork and Pulse Chain, we are like at new territory, which is everybody is just speculating on it. But it's a nice thought right now, because you remember as well, during the Pulse sacrifice phase, we got the opportunity to sacrifice 15 to 20 cents of HEX, or 18, and at the Pulse X, we got the opportunity to sacrifice like 20 to 33 cents HEX. And just let's assume HEX price does not move at all over the fork. Let's say it's at 8 cents directly after the fork. Yeah. But on the Pulse Chain side, we don't have any dollar value yet, because there is no bridge live yet. Do you think that with your Pulse and your Pulse X, you would get way more HEX in return than what you needed for HEX to get 1 unit of Pulse and Pulse X?
So explain that, simplify that statement again. So are you saying that
so for example,
if I wanted HEX as my endpoint, as my store of value narrative, is that what you're saying?
Let's say you are a sacrificer, either for Pulse or for Pulse X.
Both.
And it doesn't matter if one or both. And then the fork happens, and then do you see the possibility that we see such a ratio shift, that, for example, you needed?
Well, I mean, many of us, if I kind of gather what you're saying, I've said that I think that this ecosystem is going to have the same economic energy sloshing around in the same bathtub. I think it's going to be the same water that moves, and there's going to be this attraction to charts and this attraction to arbitrage and things like that engage communities outside of HEX, outside of Richard Hart, outside of whatever, right? So people that will come into the system will see chart of Pulse Chain go up, chart of Pulse Chain in their chart formation mindsets have a certain pattern, and then they will rotate, and they'll rotate into Pulse X if that looks attractive, or Pulse or HEX if that looks attractive.
Just in general, let's say you got 10 pulls for 1 HEX by sacrificing, just giving any numbers here, and now chain is live, and because the HEX price is like 3 times lower than at the time when we sacrificed for pulls, that you also would get 1 HEX for 10 pulls, that you would get like 30 pulls for 1 HEX, for example.
So just so we can show it here to our people, Patrick, when was the sacrifice again? You have it.
It was like where are we? It's not shown here on the thing. It ended on the 2nd. It's still here, but it ended on the 2nd of August 2021.
Okay, so it ended there. The price was a little bit higher, and now
this chart history is not that long.
You put in, for example, 100,000 HEX with a value back then, and now these 100,000 HEX are way worthless. Right? Not worth. They're worth a little bit less than they were a couple of months ago, and therefore,
they are like at 60% minus.
The points you got back then in order to get your PLS, right? This is pretty much fixed, and now your HEX value is a little bit less. So now you just need more HEX in order to get these pulls that you got when you sacrificed.
That might be the case, and then like the other way around, it would mean that you will get way more HEX for your Pulse or Pulse X than you needed at the time to sacrifice. Because I'm talking about this because I always thought, okay, at first people will FOMO into Pulse, even like mess up the Pulse X to Pulse ratio, because Pulse X, a lot of people FOMO because of Pulse, and then Bridge goes live and shoots up all both higher, and I thought that HEX will go down, like in the first week or 2, for example, because now people might need to speculate at one coin in order to get Pulse X or Pulse. So lots of people are just speculating on HEX to get the double to buy with the copy Pulse and Pulse X. That's why I thought HEX price might go down. But now with the HEX price so much down in US dollar terms compared to the two sacrifice sets, and knowing that the biggest sacrificers are like die-hard Hexicans, I'm sure, like, if my thought process is still right, because if everybody at the beginning sees like, whoa, what nice of a deal if I buy HEX right now for my Pulse or for my Pulse X, then yeah, all three coins could rise pretty fast.
Yeah, I mean, the narrative to me as already involved with all three products, right? The narrative as to me is Pulse Chain had to occur in order to continue the adoption curve of HEX. Now it's going to be on a different, it'll be on a fork of Pulse Chain. It will also exist on Ethereum, so it'll be a doubling effect, right? The product of HEX will exist in multiple chains.
Yeah.
And in the future, even I can see that it will be on a third or a fourth potential chain. What I mean is like a Pulse Chain 2 or Pulse Chain 3 or whatever, because horizontal scaling is something that Richard has commented on positively. And if we adopt and we change some element of Ethereum, we are still running effectively Ethereum 1.0, so it'll exist on this one, which we won't change. The Pulse Chain will be the new narrative for, you know, a year to 2 years or 3 years. Becomes expensive as a transaction, as all blockchains eventually do. Bitcoin used to be free to transact, no cost at all. Later became expensive to transact. Ethereum used to be very close to nothing, became expensive. Pulse Chain will start out at low, eventually become expensive. So I can see that HEX will be replicated in multiple places. That's one of the reasons why I advocate.
But isn't doing Richard with his dev team exactly like steps in order to have more time until the chain gets filled up?
Does that
3 seconds instead of
10,000x?
No, but like 3 seconds instead of 13 seconds, like 33 validators instead of proof of work, and
I mean, there's all kinds of reasons to say. Well, again,
the
I don't think
movement
he'll take
to
the
go
path.
and not from gas.
I don't think he'll take the path that this is the only L1. I think that eventually he will say another L1 is worthwhile, and it will be a fork of Pulse Chain. I think, my guess. Because he has said, and he almost all of his content says, you don't need to necessarily come up with a brand new product or service that never existed before.
If something like that happens, that would mean that you get your Pulse and your Pulse X copied, probably.
Possibly. I mean, there's all kinds of things that could happen in a speculative manner. But what I like is that tends to be, he says, this is efficient, but it could be better. Let's make a better. And then that will take market share. It's happened in social media platforms. It's happened in every kind of invention that you've ever used, from ways to listen to music when you were a kid to versus today. There's all kinds of iterations to do the same thing. So when it comes to the what got sacrificed, maybe in the form of HEX or Ethereum or Bitcoin or whatever, that had a dollar value in your mind whenever you sacrificed. It has. There's a graph that can tell you what your address got credited with as far as how many Pulse or Pulse X got credited to you. So you have something anchoring in your mind that's a dollar or euro value or whatever. And then also you have a number of units value in your head. This is how many of HEX I gave up. This is how much of Ethereum I gave up. So those two things are going to be in your decision-making process, I think, when you see the popularity of Ethereum of a Pulse Chain or Pulse X. You say, now this is popular. Now it's 10x or 50x or 100x or whatever it is. And I think that some people, when they take those casino chips off the table, some of it will go to lifestyle and display and reaffirm to the general public, hey, I made a smart decision in investing. Hey, you should join me too, right? And that feeds to the narrative of 10,000x, because that's where it comes from, is new adoption. And then on top of that, some of those chips, I think, will go back into HEX to say, how many HEX did I originally sacrifice versus what I'm getting now? I
personally had like talks with HEX OGs who told me, like, I only sacrificed that I can swap it back for HEX later.
It's the same thing. So I'm one of those types of people. I will still pay attention. I'll pay attention more to the chart than I have been in the past year or two, simply because I do have a certain percentage of my stack that I will exit out of if having it locked in delegation or locked in incentive token and PRT tokens, if that doesn't seem like that yield is returning the number of hex I put in fast enough.
I mean, I can
liquidate
assure
some
you that
percentage.
validating your PLS won't give you much yield. I can assure you that
it
validating
gives you almost nothing as far as a delegation.
Yeah.
Right. But there's still people buy stock in Apple and Tesla, even though the sale of their products don't really affect the price of the share. It's still perception that makes you think that your share is worth more because people are appreciating your share. You know what I'm saying? So it's a psychology versus an actual percentage. So even, say if it gets popularized for some reason, that delegating in a proof of stake has merit. It's reinforcing the security or whatever the narrative is that gets put out there by everybody or Richard or whomever. There's going to be some people that say, yeah, you're right. And some people say, no, that's stupid. It doesn't matter.
Let's stick with those speculations. What is your speculation when Pulse Chain finally launches?
What?
I have this question.
Price, or what do you mean?
You have that? Or no,
I have the
just
question right here. It is in German, but the question goes something like this. Richard Hart called the Bitcoin top twice. He knows exactly where the market is going, right? So is Richard Hart maybe waiting to launch Pulse Chain to be exactly at the bear market bottom of crypto? What do you think?
Or to get it kind of like he got it with HEX?
So this is the theory. This is the situation right now, right?
Some people say conspiracy theory, and they think that that's a negative thing. I just have a theory. I don't know what the word would be about optimist theory. My optimist theory is Richard has been in this game for a long time, and he's been in video gaming for a long time, and game theory concept, and he's been trained in logic as a 10-year-old or whatever his story is, right? It's a very perceptive person. Some of his social graces and things like that don't go over with every crowd, but he is a super smart guy. And my impression is that he doesn't call the tops because he watches what other people are doing and charts as much as he makes tops. I think that Richard Hart makes tops. I think when people say, look, it fell out of the parabola, that he was part of that reason that it falls out of the parabola. And when things hit a bottom, I think he's part of the reason why it is the bottom. So when he makes a public call, I think his accuracy is very spot on because you kind of know what you just did. That's my impression. Right? Yeah. Now, when we had the AA, we had a whole, there's a narrative about whether however many got recycled or how many total number of Ethereum went into a particular pocket that became, the offset of HEX, whatever you say, as far as this pool is Ethereum and this bucket of Ethereum and this is how much HEX gets released, that whole narrative. At the end of Eric Wall's conversation, one of the big things that he has said at the very end was, imagine that someone received Ethereum that then 40x'd and then went into stablecoin or whatever. Yeah. What do you think the economic energy is able to do, right? So when people say that he's very accurate, I agree, he is very accurate. And I tend to think that it's because he's part of that cascade, whatever the cascade, whether it's here's the top, here's the bottom. So when you say, is it the bottom? If it's suitable and it fits the best narrative of marketing of the HEX product in the near future, sure, it could be the bottom. Because
so when Pulse Chain launches, we should go and take out credits.
I don't want to push the price, but I tend to think that when things are ready to go, that's the bottom.
So what Richard mentioned there with Eric Wall was something the most bullish I ever heard out of Richard Hart's mouth, right? Because yes, it was a thought experiment, but it's something that's definitely able to play out, like he had said it, right? And the reason why I brought it up is to me, it seems like we had V1, V2, the SEC balanced were good, right? We had a lot of things that were working already. And now maybe because the market sentiment is, okay, we are in a bear market, crypto is not 90%, 95% down yet. Let's wait for the exact bottom. So we have a little bit more time. Let's use our finished code that we have in Geth and transform it into Go so it's even better. We have a little bit of time and maybe Richard Hart uses this time effectively now. What do you think about that?
Yeah, but it's still back to the question. What is your speculation of launch?
I still think that Saylor needs to get liquidated.
Okay, so you would say...
I still think that there's more pain in Bitcoin.
So you would say a few months?
Yeah. I think that someone wants to brag about it.
We have
Who
a
is someone?
Sailor who needs to
Somebody wants to brag about
Sailor
it.
who needs to
That's
get
my
liquidity,
guess.
and then all the NFTs who still have some value, right? Like normally NFTs should go
Yeah.
to
I
value.
mean, all
to
the
zero
NFTs
first.
is hard to say, yeah, but there are definitely overvalued NFTs
Yeah.
still out in the market.
Well, I just saw this thing. It was I watched a little bit of content today, and it was talking about an NFT television program. Seth Green, Gary Vaynerchuk, people like that. They're making a television program, and one of the characters is an NFT. It's like an animated NFT interacting with human beings, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing is, I think it was the ape ones, whatever the most popular one is. Supposedly, contrary to what Richard says, that the JPEG doesn't give you any kind of rights to the image.
Mm-hmm.
This particular type of NFT supposedly transfers the rights to the image, the likeness and the rights, right?
Mm-hmm.
The intellectual property rights, copyrights. Well, Seth Green is a popular guy who makes a lot of different television shows. He's been a movie star for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
He bought that particular NFT, and then he built and got together producers and developers and things like that to make this television show, right, around the fact that he had the intellectual property. But then 7 days before the show was supposed to be released, he got either hacked or lost the NFT. So the question is, can he launch it? Because the NFT's premise is that you have intellectual property rights. But now a different Ethereum address and an anonymous name supposedly has it. So do you actually have legal right? That's one of those questions about NFTs that's coming out right now because of this, right? Do you have transferability? He says, no, it was hacked, it was thieved. Well, again, is it blockchain because code is law, or is it, government intervention because that's my IP?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's an interesting thing. So again, I think that there will be my particular thing. And again, I'm not a trader. This is not investment advice. I have no clue whatsoever. My just gut feeling is that there's more pain to come inside of Bitcoin, and that enough people haven't been washed out, especially people that are going on channels. Even yesterday, I think Sailor was on yesterday on one of the major television channels talking about you should mortgage your house, get money out, leverage everything you can to get Bitcoin.
Okay.
And he doesn't also say that if it gets to $22,000, I got to liquidate and sell on your head. He doesn't say that.
Why not?
Richard always says exactly the opposite. Richard says you should never get a loan for your Bitcoin or your crypto.
He doesn't want to put you in a leverage position. He doesn't want to put you in liquidatable.
Giving your opinion to the general market, do you think that HEX will be affected by that as well, the HEX price?
What's the percentage of the HEX holders that can sell the price would sell the price? I don't know. I really don't know that metric. There's no Etherscan data to tell you. You can say how many people, what percentage of the total HEX is staked. You can say how much the OA has versus the general community. There's all kinds of numbers and metrics we can pull
but
from.
Still, you can also
also
say like that from the Ethereum all-time high or the Bitcoin all-time high. Since that. HEX at first held it strong because there was all this expectation about both chain to launch like last year. That didn't hold, and then HEX also went in the bear market. And since then, of course, not like on an exact daily base, but on one day Bitcoin and Ethereum fall, HEX might be still green. Richard says like the floor is lava, but then on the very next day, HEX has its correction. So it was like kind of like that in the past months. There was like the hype phase because of Pulse X, which also doubled the price shortly, but.
Well, we also, again, the pairing issue, I think that, others that make comments about, that it's not correlated, it is correlated, all these kinds of things. It depends on who says it at the time, whether it fits the narrative or not.
I mean, it's not correlated, but in general, if there is an overall bear market, it's also affected. That's my...
Well, an interesting thing, so I saw this Twitter commentary earlier, and it was something like you can't have yield on an ERC20 that has value. Someone was saying something along those lines. But interestingly, the majority of the liquidity because they were saying that, if you lock up your dollar in a bank CD and you have yield because of the CD, then you're being paid in dollar for dollar locked up. Okay. Well, what's interesting is that the liquidity pair dominant in HEX is USDC, which
Yes.
is a stable,
Yeah.
versus the liquidity pair dominant being in something else is also volatile,
Mhm.
right? So in some ways, you could spin it, narrative, whatever, that it can be yield on yield, dollar on dollar, or euro on euro because of the pairing. Because the majority of liquidity in HEX, unlike many other things, when people buy HEX, they are buying HEX. They're looking for a path to get to the product.
Mhm.
Whereas when people trade in crypto in and out cycles and so forth, they're looking often to stack into Bitcoin that later becomes, material things or whatever. It's just it is the closest, because again, with T-shares, you already know that you can get 20% more for every year that you are staked, something along those lines.
Yeah, more
right?
bonus.
Yes, for the bonuses and things like that. So if you're going to say, what's the best paying dollar denominated account out there? If we were only USDC or only a stable coin and no other path, no other pair existed, then that's what HEX would be. It would be the highest yielding savings account that you could find.
Yes.
So guys, I want to read two questions here. First one from Pro Bono 100. He's saying BTC will at least hit 10K. Where's Bitcoin right now, Patrick?
28.
28. So it's still 3x that it can go down when it comes to Pro Bono here. Would you say that?
Yeah, but
only 6,000 away from liquidation of the savings.
So I would. I don't think that Richard is right on that it will like hit down under 10K. But yeah, I would say yes if somebody tells me Bitcoin goes under 20, like retesting the all-time high of 2017 again. I would agree to that at least. Yeah.
So when Bitcoin goes down
it's
to
a harder
10,
scenario. Just
then
a second.
Sailor would be liquidated.
At 22, I think. Is
All
right. And he took leverage out. He took out $200 million loan to get more Bitcoin. So he's actually in a position, precarious position.
And then Billy X is saying network effect plus product market fit plus die-hard community and reputable name brand equals life-changing opportunity for years to come. So the game theory in HEX is written in a way where it's normal for the price appreciation, but also for those price dumps that we have, right? And how often did we see those price dumps in HEX already? Several times, right? 5, 6, 8 times. And now we are in a dip like this as well. And because of HEX game theory, where people stake their HEX, right?
Such a big dip like right now, it's the second biggest dip.
Second biggest
It's not like the fifth biggest or something. It's the second biggest after the first month.
What I want to make the point though is that because of its game theory, I'm expecting a new all-time high. I do not know if it's this year or next year or whenever, but there will be a new all-time high because of the network effect and product market fit that HEX clearly has. So what else is there to talk about, right? When could this network effect actually happen? And my guess is as soon as we have Pulse Chain, as soon as we bring adoption to crypto, HEX, Pulse, X, they will all profit from each other, right?
Yeah, I also think so. So now a good question for you. Also speculative, but do you think that HEX, Pulse, and Pulse X will be like correlated to each other? Or do you think that, for example, Pulse and Pulse X are together and HEX is anti-correlated to those two? Or do you think that Richard Hart coins go up and down together?
The commentary that I'll make in the public in the future will always be this similar to Bitcoin altcoin narrative that's played out, that there's a Bitcoin season where altcoin value, that you've had this dirty gains over here, you made 100x in this gem, and then now that consolidates because it seems like it's waning and it consolidates into Bitcoin, and then that dominance narrative takes over for a little bit, where everyone's like safe during the winter, in Bitcoin.
But in this analogy, is HEX Bitcoin there, and Pulse and Pulse X are the altcoins?
HEX to me is the Bitcoin, and all the other things inside the ecosystem is the alts, in my opinion, in my projection.
Yeah, but it's like HEX is a part of the ecosystem, and Pulse Chain is the ecosystem. So that's why it's like the other way around, kind of.
No, I think so again, I say the ecosystem is cryptocurrency.
Okay, yeah.
Bitcoin is the store of value narrative in the ecosystem of cryptocurrency, and all of the alts are the way that people make their gains. If you're gonna go from 2017 till today, even at this price, even at the all-time high price, it's like 3.5 times your money from all-time high of 17 into all-time high of now, something like that, right? Yeah. So if you said, okay, I got into crypto to make mad gains. Is that mad gains? It's not mad gains, right? You could have chopped yourself up and down. You could have been a successful trader, but probably not. And who knows what you would end up with during bears, bulls, and then finally another new all-time high. And I think that the same sort of thing will happen inside of the RH ecosystem, the community ecosystem that we're forming. I think that when MetaMask version of a wallet that Richard Hart's going to have, and it's going to have some tokenomic thrown to it, and it has these other feature sets that MetaMask currently doesn't, then there'll be a narrative for that, and that'll be the dirty altcoin gain that collapses or consolidates, not collapses, but consolidates into HEX again. That's the narrative I'll promote as a Hexican. That's what I would like to see happen. I know that there's still going to be seasonality. I think there's going to be seasonality because human natures are fickle. They don't really think long-term doing the same thing. We usually change things every so often. So we don't play the same games we did as a kid. We progress. So it's the same stuff in my mind.
So basically then this goes to this question. We saw HEX at this all-time high already being the third place when it comes to coin market cap, right?
Not to coin market cap,
Ethereum,
but when it comes to coin ranking size.
Market cap, exactly. To market. It was Bitcoin, Ethereum, and third place was already HEX. With Pulse Chain coming out and us having such a big supply, and then just a little pump probably could be enough already to dethrone Bitcoin from place number one. But my question to you guys is now, will we see HEX at place number one, or Ethereum, or Pulse Chain, or Pulse X? Like, give me your number 1, 2, and 3 when it comes to market cap in the future.
Yeah, if you go with the market cap, I still would say HEX because it's the more mature market, you know. So it will, even if it only does like a 10x, but if it does like the 10x from today's prices, or if it does like your $7, just calculate $7 times 685 billion at the time or something like that. So there you have like your trillions and trillions of valuation. If you calculate it the same way as you calculate Bitcoin, because I don't like the market cap calculation at all. Also not for HEX, because Bitcoin is all ever minted Bitcoin times the price, which does not make anything sense. You know, it's just a calculated number, nothing more, nothing less, because it doesn't tell you how much Bitcoin are lost, how much Bitcoin are actively on the market, how much Bitcoin would be needed to sell the price down 20%, how much money is needed to push the price up 20% or something like that. Those are interesting metrics if I look at the coin, but not like what is the all ever minted amount times the current price. That's just senseless number. So but yeah, if we talk about, if we calculate it like that, and if we really would calculate all ever minted HEX times the HEX price, then yeah, definitely HEX at first.
Probably would be up there already.
I'll be back.
Yeah, sure.
I'll be right back.
So we have Kaza Wolf, our friend here in the chat. He's saying, I think Bitcoin will never go again under 20K because the owner structure has changed. More and more institutions, players like Musk are in. This will avoid to drop too far down. I think you mentioned something similar in the past as well, where now the situation is different, right?
It depends. I mean, I would say yes, but if you look at those players, those are like stupid players, because why do you put up a leverage position with $200 million US? And then if this fails, then you might create so much buy pressure for the Bitcoin market that you also empty out the order books, and then you also have this wick down, and then you have maybe the same wick down what you see in the HEX price chart right now, and then you see a doubling from this point within 24 hours. So let's say Bitcoin wicks down to 10K, and then 24 hours later it's at 20K again. But because of liquidations or something like that, it wicked down so much because at this one point, all the order books were empty.
So Hex Mix is saying Gary is going to get his measure.
Yeah, like zero gravity says it will wick under 15K. Yeah, that's what I meant. So it can only look the same like the daily chart in HEX right now, wick down and then straight up, because at this one moment it lost all the liquidity from the order books, and it went down so much. And this signal gives like everybody else in the market like a buy opportunity signal, obviously, and then everybody rushes into it and fills the order book again, and market buys or limit buys or whatever, and
Hex Hodler has
spikes back up.
something interesting to say. He's saying Bitcoin went down to 8,200 on Binance in the US from like 84K on spot.
That's true, yeah.
I've
On
seen this as
Binance US, it was.
But I guess Binance does that all the time.
Yeah, it was because like Binance got forced out of the US market or something like that, and then they created a special brand like Binance US, and on this Binance US you had a lot of fuckery.
So I also like what Kibono is saying here. Support level is on 21K for Bitcoin. If we break this one, we are sure going down under 20K. So Patrick, what else? Do you have other topics in your head? Otherwise, this is exactly the moment for the chat to ask questions. Other than that, we will then end the stream in a couple of minutes. But is there something that you would like to address? You have in the top of your head?
I mean, I have one last question for FundingGym in mind when he comes back. Otherwise, what did you thought, guys out there? Did you like their interviews? Just type in the comments, like if there is anything what we should talk with FundingGym again as like something else.
If you have any questions, then this is the moment right now. Shoot us your questions so we can address them. And then, of course, do not forget to like and subscribe. And I think Mars has mentioned it as well. This is on Crypto Sparbook right now, but we are trying to get more and more subscribers on our English channel, which is KSB.TV. So just look in our description. There you find this YouTube channel, KSB.TV. Would be awesome if you could subscribe there as well. So Hex Hodler is saying, when launch, hungry, when moon, when Lambos, sir. So we saw a couple of Lambos on our 5555 tour. Though this is done for Hexicans already.
Why do you say like you saw a couple of? You can tell that you drove one, bro.
Oh yeah, actually we drove one Lambo ourselves.
You really forgot that? You really forgot that? Can you give me the money back?
Such a short time.
You needed from here.
Here you see as well KSB.TV, the YouTube channel link. So just click here and please give us a sub. Kazarov is saying, was nice and interesting as usual. Hopefully your guest is not right with his time prediction.
Yeah, we will see. There is a lot of uncertainty in the market right now, because the only thing what we know is that we won't launch in the next 3 days until the end of this month. That's the only thing what Richard told us, and I also don't like it much, honestly, because I thought that at least until mid-end of May we will get the date, or we will get like a month or
of
something.
course, we
like
are
that.
in the situation as well with KSB TV where we want to launch our Million Pulse tour, right? And we said this time we really will wait for the fork and then we will do the tour. So everything, our whole work we did for the last couple of months is just waiting for the fork now, so we can start working on the Million Pulse tour and actually get events done already. And my whole life is actually waiting for Pulse to come out. Like I cannot do anything else. I'm just thinking about this one event. And here's my take on it. Everything is done, right? The code is done in Geth. We had sacrifice balances done, like everything that was needed. But now Richard Hart wants to have his code in Go, right? So maybe he needs a little bit more time. How much time? We do not know. It could come out in the next couple of weeks. Could also take a couple of months. And maybe this is the reason for pulling the liquidity. Like this guy, maybe he put his liquidity because he thought, no, I do not want to gamble around anymore. I do not want to have any liquidity position while the fork is coming out, which is reasonable, right?
Yeah, I mean, the thought process is reasonable. How he took action was not reasonable. But I mean,
true.
maybe it was not reasonable, but it was a nice gift for the Hexican community again. You know, it was the same gift like during the Pulse chain sacrifice phase, where after the 5th day, also somebody market dumped millions of hex and pushed it down 60% in one little candle, and a lot of Hexicans bought that up as well.
So we have a couple of questions here, and Hexol is saying, I heard you got the Audi R8 taken care of by a Hexican. Good work.
Yes.
Yeah, it was Nessa and Big G who bought the R8, and I'm so happy that this car went to a Hexican that I know will not take off the wrap and will probably give us the car as well when we are in his area, right?
Only you. Only you.
Let's
You're
see.
beloved Hex.
So,
Maybe you can drive it
Customer
again.
was saying new month, new game, which is true. Every month you basically have to take crypto as it is, right?
So Gary, how did you like the HEX R8? You drove it as well for a week.
Yeah, that was exciting. I mean, it's got great suspension. I think you should put it on a track, see if its top speed really is.
It's capped. It's capped at 170.
Is it capped?
Yeah.
It's got a governor. Dang.
Yeah.
So RGS is saying, great stream, guys. Always learn so much from you. Hope we will launch in June. I hope so as well. Earthling, do you think there will be no announcement for Pulse Chain to avoid traders?
Do you
Like
think...
no announcement at all?
No, I think there will be an announcement. What is your take on that? I don't think that he will give us the exact block height, but he will say like on this day in the afternoon or something like that.
Yeah, he warned us when. I mean, we knew Big Payday.
Yeah, I mean, Big Payday was programmed.
It was programmed.
So it was like a year, more than a year of heads up.
So what's the challenge?
But he also knew HEX.
He knows.
Like, he announced HEX like 3 weeks up front, right?
He said a couple of things that were kind of like before. Again, these are months-old statements about not being able to address the AMM, not AMM, the automatic bot.
Yeah,
not being able to pull liquidity from every particular AMM bot. So, and then he said, some people are going to have arbitrage opportunities. He said something along those lines because the AMM won't touch everything. That tells me, I tend to think he will say it's coming, it's here, it's today, it's like I don't know if he'll say a block height like you said, something so specific. Yeah. But I think he'll say a date.
Yeah, or a range, yeah, because maybe I'm not too technical, but maybe it's hard to give like an exact block height even, yeah, because you need to be ready, something like that, and you have a 13-second time window, so maybe you just need to do like 2-3 clicks more, and then you're like 2 blocks later.
Yeah, well, and again, it goes to the question. These are theoretical because they haven't happened before. This is relatively new, and it's game theory. So you just have to infer from what things have happened in other spaces, I guess. My thing is, what I was going to say is, if you know that if he does give you a date, let's say that you are a liquidity provider, what do you do? Do you pull the liquidity? And if you do, then there's very little at all available. Then if you say, the best path, if I don't already have Pulse Chain or PulseX, is as far as the sacrificing on the other side of the fork that exists, then maybe buying a token that probably has a strong community is a worthwhile thing to do. When there's low liquidity, then that moves the price a lot. So if people say at the last moments, hey, it happens at this time, even if it's a high watermark from a rare event, the price can potentially go very high, potentially, because there's not much liquidity, because people pull the liquidity so that they don't. So on the other side of the fork,
on the other side, I thought that there will be traders trading the event of the fork, front running the fork.
So, right, Gary, you were mentioning the liquidity situation, but Patrick wants to talk about the traders playing the game. Maybe you could sum up the pros and cons for giving an actually announcement date when we would knew it. What would be a pro and con for that?
Pro would definitely be that you are alerted that you can pull liquidity, for example, and that you can take the day off, for example, that you can have a look at the Pulse Chain's first prices and what's going on, and on the volume and so on.
So on the pro, it's definitely the certainty that it brings.
And I think that Richard wants participants, and if he gives no heads up, then it's just like the word will be like spreaded like blah, 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 blah. But if he says like in 1 week there will be pulse chain when you're at home from work,
but unfortunately this also an announcement would come with a contra as well, where traders could now buy into, right, speculate on the price going up, maybe double their points, and then just sell. Maybe you do not want that too much.
Yeah, okay, then you did not saw like the 20 cent top, then you would only have like 11, 10, 9, 8 until 4 right now, without the 20 in between that. Would you like that?
Not at all.
Yeah, so you know.
Well, again, so Richard comments all the time about buy the rumor, sell the news, buy the rumor, sell the news. Of course, you could tell this was a buy the rumor, sell the news event. All of us end up saying those things. And I wonder if he has some game theory path that buy the rumor ends up being you can't or don't or aren't able or aren't incentivized to sell the news. That's my question, is if you pull the liquidity and you have a high watermark.
But don't we want to sell the news? Because then the HEX price on the Ethereum chain is lower. And once the bridge goes live, it's easier to get parity.
Why is it easier? Because it's a lower price versus easier when it's a high price?
Yes.
Why are you saying that parity at a lower price is easier? I don't understand.
Because if parity is like not so easy to get, because nobody knows really if it's really working out. If you just put billions of hex, like hex on the pulse chain side, if then prices move up and down the same on both chains, we don't know if that's really the case or not.
Right.
And there are other market players as well who can just make different kinds of pools, which are diluting the one-to-one pack.
Yeah.
So
well, we saw
at a lower price, yes, of course, it's easier to get the parity, because on one side you would need to put buy pressure, for example.
Well, we saw, he calls them liquidity locusts. We saw our vampire attacks or whatever it is. We see when people move economically, when they move geographically, it is because either it's hardship and there's pain where you're at, like transaction costs or slow or whatever it is, or risk of like a Solana going down again or something, right? You say, okay, maybe I need to move because there's pain here. Or there's greed. It's the other thing that humans do. They move away from pain, they move toward pleasure. So like, if you're trying to incentivize people to migrate without officially saying this is taking all of the Ethereum users, how do you do it? This seems like a pretty good mechanism, a reasonable mechanism. Do you want the price of Ethereum for all holders on Ethereum to stay on Ethereum and be high? Yes, but that's not reality. So the adjustment, the pivot is, like, we'll have a new blockchain or pulse chain. And then there'll be incentive to migrate. Why? There's farming over here. There's pairs over here. There's incentive token that you can earn because you've moved some of that liquidity from Ethereum. Some of it's held by quote unquote strong hands that probably will never hit the market. And that pool of potential shrank when there was a sacrifice, right? So a big chunk of HEX went into the sacrifice. And I think it will shrink again because some of it will go across the ramp and be bridged and wrapped and be part of pools. So you're going to see scarcity play out on the Ethereum HEX side. And I don't know that low parity price is any beneficial or more potential than high parity price. I don't know why there wouldn't be, here's a splash event that sets the high water mark, and now here's parity because there's enough liquidity put by either migrants
to hold the parity. I guess it's I saw it might be hard to hold the parity.
And also people want,
because like is HEX really more scarce on the ETH chain? Because people will still like end stake, mint the inflation, and have like millions and millions and millions of HEX in their hands.
Well, and again, so people that participate in crypto, they may know the broader arena of crypto, and then they have habits that form. Like people that I always talk with too that are selling trading programs. They build their trading programs based on what they see in the marketplace that seems to work and give them profit. Trade in, trade out, next 5 gems, trade in, trade out, next 5 gems. They don't want to call it a pump and dump, but they're acting as pump and dump instigators, right? So I think that the RH ecosystem has the potential to change that mentality. And partly is because we've all been tempered over the past several years. We've been tempered about delayed gratification. We've been nurtured into a certain belief or philosophy, most of us, many of us, right? And there's still participants that are just new to the game and they haven't had that hardening or that temperance. But they're really not that much economic energy in the system. The new 3,000 addresses that hold HEX, I don't know that they are that much buying power out of the total volume of HEX, right? I don't know how much they push the price. I think that the big people that moved the price recently down to the 4%, I think that they had a lot of HEX too and a lot of liquidity, and they had an emotional reaction and they pulled that money and, you know, against themselves.
But here I brought it up, the chart.
Different.
Yes, we went down to 3.5 and we are already up 141%. I think, like, isn't that a great feeling?
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, there you see like how much buy pressure was.
It's the crypto Sparbuck effect.
It's Sparbuck effect. And a last question for me, Gary. Gary, great interview. Thanks for being a guest today. Do you think that the Pulse and the Pulse X price can fall under the highest sacrifice price? So, for example, we had the rate 1 to 10,000, the base rate. Which would mean 3 zeros on the 1. And if you say, okay, like the high sacrifices got like at least another X on volume bonus, that would be a price of 4 zeros and the 5. So do you think it can go lower than that or will go lower than that? That the all-time high is lower than the highest sacrifice price?
So when you're trying to lose weight, one of the big things that people tell you to do is just drop 500 calories per day. Like drop 500 calories per day.
Yeah, eat less. Right? Definitely helps.
So it seems very, very hard to do the first 500 calories. And then the next day and the next day and you form a habit. And then that tends to happen. And what I'm getting at is people sacrificed almost a year ago. And guess what? They still survived. Like they still met their bills. They still paid their rent. They still had their dinners and things like that. They still lived with the money out of their control, but in a sacrifice, right? So it's kind of normalized in a way that they don't have that money. That they, you know, yes, I put this money in. Yes, I would love to have it back. But am I going to, now that I have access to it, now that there's a market price for it, you know, am I going to get it back at a 1-to-1 ratio? I've already delayed my gratification a whole freaking year. Like, don't I want a 2x or a 3x or something in crypto? So it's kind of like, you know, when you have a savings plan or a 401k or any other kind of investment thesis, you know, they do take the money out of your paycheck before you ever see it and can spend it. And there's a reason. It's because psychologically it kind of conditions you to live off of that. Even when you get a pay raise, most of the time when you get a pay raise, people elevate their lifestyle and they go back to the same margin between what they make versus what they spend. The difference really
that they don't save
much.
more.
They don't save more because they make
like
more.
They make 3% more, but they don't save 3% more.
So it's interesting that Richard's mechanism of the sacrifice, even with the delay, even with the stress and anxiety and all the other stuff about the marketplace of it, it has kind of conditioned people to say, you don't really miss that money. It's $2 billion or $1.5 billion, but you don't really miss it. Right? Like it didn't impact your life that much.
Because my personal speculation is that in the beginning we shoot over, like with the overvaluation, and then we shoot under.
I don't know about the under. Maybe it's a fear narrative, and people say I'd rather get something. Maybe it's a Terra Luna recent event or whatever. But typically, I mean, again, I have this conversation with people in macroeconomics, nothing to do with crypto, and I say, you know, the flight of capital. You know, people are going to make money somewhere. Where do they put it? If it's not this asset class, it's this other one. If it's not this country because you fear this particular country's overreach, where is it in the world? Where does that money migrate? Right? Where does it go? So in a room full of you know, things that trigger your fear response, where do you put it for safety? And you know, so. I don't know. I'll stick with me personally. I don't have a reason to sell. I've lived on a couch. I've lived poor. I don't have to. I like ramen. They're tasty noodles, you know. So it doesn't really, you know. I want profit, but I also want profit at the benefit of the entire community. So I wouldn't be somebody personally that would be okay. I'm going to spike underneath the price and then set the psychological narrative that you lost money. because you sacrifice and it's now under your sacrifice price.
Mhm.
I don't think that serves anybody that great of a good
Yeah.
psychologically.
Yeah.
So I don't think.
No,
that
I'm
the people that
only
can
I'm
move the
only
price
thinking
would
that
move the price.
usually cryptocurrencies in their beginning have not the biggest amount of liquidity,
Mhm.
and if then like such a big player makes those market sales, let's assume like that the same player or one of those players also sacrifice for pools or pools X.
Mhm.
I wouldn't need to make a chain analysis, but I'm pretty sure that will hold
If
true.
they have to
you know?
sell to get out of jail, if they have to sell to, you know,
Yeah,
mom's
just like
needs surgery.
we already
Okay,
saw
fine.
that those participants
Yeah.
don't care about high volume market orders to eat the most amount of slippage, only like to destroy RH projects, or I don't know what the reasoning behind is, maybe. So that could take place.
So I've been hearing, we talked about this earlier too, there's a doom and gloom narrative that is more attractive to the ear than the everything's rosy narrative. This is just part of our human psychology.
Yeah, I'm not sure like if I myself just want that to play out, that I can scoop up more cheap pulls and pull sacks.
Yeah, I mean the news is loaded with things to trigger our fear response in general. And I'm not saying that these things don't happen inside of even the relatively closed system of RH stuff. It's I've been hearing about the housing crash for a decade, you know, and it did happen in 2008 and 9, and there was pain that happened in that, and then it went up and to the right from then on too. Like the stock market has crashes, and it did. We talk about 1929, we talk about Weimar Germany, we talk about all kinds of things that have happened in our historical economic past. Yeah, and then it still went up and to the right anyway. Like these things do happen, right? And they have big resets, and malinvestment gets cleansed from the system. And then people say, you know, probably shouldn't put my money into those kinds of things because it didn't work out before. That was a bad idea, right? People leave marketplaces and don't ever return. And sometimes that's sad because the technology that became, or the company that became Amazon or Tesla or SpaceX or whatever that has high yield, Apple or whatever, you missed out on those guys because you got burned by these other guys. Richard tries to save us mostly from the horrors that are available to us in crypto. You know, it's like, please stop doing that. It's not good for you.
So we have Cabana Crypto in the chat. He's saying hello from shore. Looking forward listening to what I've missed so far. And yeah, our stream is going on 1 hour and 40 minutes so far. I want to say thank you, Gary, for being with us on the stream. I want to read this question here, but before, do you have any questions for me or Hexline? And then we could do this question that you have for us. But before of that, we have Hex Pro Hexer saying parity has nothing to do with price. It has to do how much liquidity. If the OA makes a liquidity pool of billions of hex, then already you have parity. But
yeah, I'm not sure about that. That's what we talked about, that if that's really the case, because okay, there is like this giant pool, but then there is this pool, and there is this pool, and there is this pool with different ERC20 coins on both chains. So I don't know if we really get like 100% back. You know, it's.
And of course, this is all the speculation if the OA would make such a pool, right? Then I guess the parity would be way easier to reach than if it wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say the OA. I would say it will be the sacrifice address if so.
What is your statement about this one? This is an interesting question to me.
Sailor can collateralize his 200 million loan all the way down to sub 4K BTC with just his Bitcoin. Not to mention if he started using other stuff. He's 99% not going to get liquidated, in my opinion. Money Changers is saying.
So $4,000 Bitcoin means he has so much Bitcoin that he can give up as collateral that's already, you know, pledged as collateral against the 200 million. How many Bitcoin does it control?
But this is only in theory, right? Like if you're down that much, if Bitcoin would hit 10K.
That's an open number, no? From MicroStrategy, no? What is it? 190,000, 150,000, something?
Yeah. So again, 190,000 times $4,000. Is that what you were saying? You're saying that it's like $800 million worth of Bitcoin that he'd be giving up for a $200 million loan?
Billion. If you calculate million, but if you calculate 100 million times 1,000.
Well, I was saying 1,000 as 4,000. So 1,000 times 190,000 would be 190 million.
Yeah.
And then 4 times that is what I was doing.
Okay.
So 4 times 190.
You had then 760.
So that's why I was getting that 760 million number in order to collateralize a 200 million loan. I don't know.
But would he really do that?
If he has that many, I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I think that Celsius was completely collateralized. The coin did shit. It's terrible. Right?
That's true. Yeah. I mean, the coin did shit. So in like 2020 or like in the bull run 2020 to 2021, before it did shit, it made like huge gains as well.
Yeah. I mean, I remember it being in the top 10 or top 7 or whatever it was. I remember Crypty Girl. And again, I like Crypty Girl, but she's a Celsius Pro person and things like that. And I remember Richard Hart had meetings with Alex.
I mean, a Hexican pointed it to me, but I never checked it out deeper or something like that. But yes, that's why I know that it made gains as well before it fell.
So Gary, is there any question you have to us, to the KSB TV team maybe?
Yeah. So where are we having that mansion party in Vegas? Is that happening? Is it all contingent on Pulse Chain launching, or what's going on?
Exactly. There? First of all, we need the Pulse Chain to launch, right? We are working really hard right now.
Who is speaking about a mansion party? We never spoke about a mansion party.
Well, I think Gary just brought it up.
I was just saying, is it going to convert?
No, but because like Nagabo is thinking about doing a mansion party on the 9th of September. PulseCon will definitely take place because there is like everything paid for, Tony just went ahead there, so that's definitely will take place. And our event on the 5th, the day before, the Golf Masters will also be a fixed event, because if Pulse Chain is not out yet, then it will be the HEX Masters, and be good.
The HEX Masters, exactly. So this is the event we are looking forward, right? We can only start our tour once the fork is out, but maybe what comes the closest to your question to where's the best mansion party gonna be is maybe the HEX cruise that KSB TV is planning as well. You will find everything about that on hexmeetups.com and as well on KSB TV. I think we have the information about the HEX cruise as well.
Oh, cool.
It will be an amazing thing.
So just to break it down, it will be a 4-day cruise from Florida over the Bahamas and back.
Nice.
And it's not a huge focus on the educational part, more like on the networking part, have dinners together, on the day trips, like meet your favorite Hexican streamer, for example. And all this kind of stuff, just like fun time with friends and family in Hex.
Patrick, what do you think? How many people, how many Hexicans could we bring to the cruise?
I don't know. We will need to do some more advertisement.
So I would say, let's say 200, 300, 400 Hexicans could come, right? But the boat has capacity of 1,500 people. Right. And then if the rest of the people are seeing all those crazy Hexicans on 4 days,
we will onboard the rest of the boat. That's my idea, exactly. That's like the challenge as well,
Well, I mean, again, people should be outside of the bubble that they already have. Even if you're part of this community, I think you should be doing outreach in general. If you have a particular niche that you have an interest in, you already had curiosity about, then make content about that, whether it's in social media or otherwise in person. Get out and engage, right? Part of, if we are going into a recession or depression or something like that in the macroeconomic space, community matters, right? It matters. We have reinforcement between our own community. Part of the reason I think that HEX swelled so well during the COVID lockdown is because we did have all this teleconferencing, Zoom meetings and things like that, and building our community. Continue to do that, continue to do that. Find things that are entertaining, find things that you can synergize, like your cruise that you're planning or the convention thing. These are great things because it builds your planning skill set, your interpersonal communicating skill set, your public presentation skill set that you guys have mastered over your tour, right? You've done very, very well in that growth, right? And it serves you well no matter what your industry is. It helps you bridge people into HEX or Pulse or build some other thing that you may have interest in the future. So I think that, I want to compel people that are in the community to continue to grow. And if they're employed, continue to be employed. Like, there's skills beneficial to being employed longer than you expected. There's benefit to it. If you can...
Depends of the job.
Yeah, it depends on the job, right? If maybe, again, like casting off an old shell.
Because, for example, I mean, I could still be like employed at the same company where I worked, but I didn't find a lot of joy or fulfillment in working night shifts at a big hotel in the reception, so it's like it was good to research the markets. It was good to now with the lockdowns and so on, because I still got money and barely had to work anymore, but it was like each and every night kind of the same thing, a little bit of individualism if people had like different problems, but in the end, it's not.
Well, what's good is, again, you relate to, again, on a reception at a hotel, you probably have limited engagement even with the customer or with your peers. You already know them and so forth.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, if you put yourself in a position of uncomfortable, you will grow.
Yeah.
Right. And you guys obviously are great examples of growth, coming to a different country, spending, all the time that you did using city to city, all the logistics that had to be figured out, all of the social skills you had to have to manage an entourage of 10 or 12 people. I mean, all of the different hosting events that you've done. Again, I think
you did great booking everything.
Great, thank you. I only messed it up a couple of times, but I think I learned from that.
Yeah. He's an Airbnb master, so for everybody out there.
Yeah.
So, like you said, we spent a lot of money on the last tour, right? And I cannot imagine if I would have not done it, because I grew the most out of the whole team, like personally, right, with all my skills and stuff. So the money was well spent for me on the tour. What do you think?
Yeah. If you think about a college, 2-year-long, whatever kind of thing, let's say a semester or a whole year of college, and the cost of that, cost in your time, cost of what you're learning that you actually can apply at the end of the day. 90% of what you get taught in college, I don't think you actually ever utilize, my own opinion. But everything that you used and everything you developed over the course of your tour.
Did you say 90%?
I don't think you use most of what you get taught.
90 is a lot. 90 is a lot.
I mean,
I agree with you.
Your concepts might be, how to figure out a math problem, and you figure out the tools of how to figure out the problem.
Yeah.
Instead of the memorization of what happened in the 1800s between this country and that country's treaty. Like I think a lot of that kind of stuff. If you have a natural curiosity for history, sure, great. You'll engage it normally, naturally, because you're curious. But you don't have to. I don't think that you're served best because of your memorizing dates and stuff like that.
Awesome. So do we have anything else from the chat?
No more questions in the chat, but a lot of people were watching here. So I want to say, do not forget to like and subscribe. Also hit the bell, because we do our streams a little bit irregular and you want to get notifications all the time when we are live, I hope. So thank you, Gary. Thank you, HEXline, for being here.
Thanks Gary.
Everybody in the chat, and we will see us next week.
Have a good time.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.